fine. You're fine. You're fine.
Thank you.
All right. So yes, today's topic is the second chapter of Zhuang Zi, and it is perhaps the most important chapter. So we, as usual, I will start with a little bit of historical background and just some background context, but most of you have heard this part maybe a couple of times already, so I'll go through that very quickly, and then we'll dive into the original text, and so let's do it. So the historical background, Zhuang Zi was a philosopher from the golden age of Chinese philosophy, which is about from the 6th to the 3rd century BC. And this period was in the East, what's called the Eastern Zhou dynasty of China. And this period can be further broken down into two sub-periods called the Spring and Autumn and the Warring States periods. And Zhuang Zi is from the later period, the Warring States period. And this is really a special, very special time in Chinese history, during which both economic, cultural, industrial, and political revolutions were all happening simultaneously. This was a feudalistic period in China, and there was a lot of, the central Zhou king was very much weakened by now. So there was a lot of decentralization, a lot of warfare between the states for the stronger states to take over the weaker states. So by this time, originally hundreds of states had conglomerated into just dominated by 7 states in China. And this was also the beginning of the Iron Age in China, about a millennium before the West. And so there was a lot of technological innovations and progress going on very rapidly, and the improvement of weaponry, which of course is interacts with the warfare. And there is also a lot of very rapid enhancement of social mobility, upward mobility, breakdown of this feudalistic orders, and also a lot of interstate commerce and travel. And so here's a chart that I showed last time. And this is, like I mentioned last time, this is not meant to be taken as some kind of chart of proven facts. It's a hypothetical lineage of philosophy, some of the main philosophers in this golden age era. And it's hypothetical. It's been proposed by various prominent scholars throughout history and has gained a certain foothold among Chinese scholars throughout the centuries. So it's important for us to be aware of this, and also it's helpful to not take it as facts, but as an organization of influence, mutual influences among these philosophers. So Zhuang Zi is in the center bottom here. And the main thing for me to point out here is that he occupies kind of a special position, being that he's had received strong influence both from Confucius school of philosophy and of course also from Lao Tzu. So let's go into a little bit about Zhuang Zi himself, as I mentioned before. He's from a central part of China at that time. And he's from a modest socio-economic class. He was described as a paint garden clerk. Now, this could have two interpretations. One is that paint garden could be a place name, so he could be the town clerk of the town of Paint Garden. Or maybe Paint Garden really was a garden, so he was some kind of a park employee. And he lived circa 370 to 300 BC. And his hometown is called Meng, which was, at the time when he was born, it was part of the state of Song, and later was taken by the state of Wei, and then later taken by the state of Chu. So this is really a reflection of how much warfare there was going on. And he was described in history as a man of vast intellectual breadth, but mainly rooted in Lao Tzu's teaching. So I think his life, he was really microcosm, right, reflects a lot of the world at that time in China. Someone with a very modest means had access to higher learning, to books. He was very well learned, so he must have had access to a lot of books. He had a very deep and broad understanding of all the other schools of philosophy in China, and also of historical and current events. So this was typical of the philosophers from that time. So it makes me wonder, what was the world like at that time in China? Maybe they had something like, this was before TV or radios. So did they have something like national newspapers, for example? And people like that with modest means were able to publish their book, write and publish the thoughts that survive until today. So if I had a time machine, I certainly, probably the first thing I would like to go is to go to China at that time. And answer some questions.
Yes. I
Yes.
have a quick question. Should I raise my hand or?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
But in general, raising your hand is good.
Okay. Will do. Sorry about that. So I guess my question would be, what was the kind of political climate, if you had to kind of describe it at the time in these locations?
Of course, it would vary very much from state to state, locality to locality, but as a broad brush, it was a time of dichotomy of frequent warfare, but at the same time, people's standard of living was high. And so that's all, without getting into too much, that's all I'm going to say about that.
Okay.
Yeah. So the book of Zhuang Zi has normally is categorized into the 7 inner chapters, and there's 15 outer chapters and 11 miscellaneous chapters. And most scholars believe that Zhuang Zi actually, he himself wrote the 7 inner chapters. So let's zoom into the 7 inner chapters. Sorry, I'm going to turn off my phone. Notifications are bothering me. So Jason last time expressed that this really the 7, which I agree with very much, that these 7 chapters really should be viewed as a coherent set of essays. And even if you look at the titles of the chapters, I think it's telling, right? The first one is Free Journey. Second one is a discourse on leveling things. The third one is the essence of nurturing life. Fourth one is the human world. Fifth one is the manifest of being filled with De. De is a concept sometimes translated as virtue. Sixth one is great master, and the seventh is should be king. So it really progressed from kind of personal liberation onto bigger and bigger concepts. And eventually it gets somewhat into the final chapter is maybe the only place where Zhuang Zi actually expresses some of his views on society and government. And so today, last time we did chapter 1, the free journey. And this time we're getting into chapter 2. And this is, I've always found this chapter the most difficult for me to understand the original text. And it's also perhaps maybe the longest chapter of the 7. So we're not going to be able to finish it today. I've only gone through and managed to translate half of it. We'll see if we even finish the half, but that's okay. Wherever we leave off, we're gonna pick up next time, and so on. And because there's really a lot of meat to discuss. So today, unlike my style before, I actually like it to be much more interactive. I'm gonna do one little segment at a time. And at the end of each segment, we're gonna pause and discuss and take as much time as we need to explore each one. So here we go. Sorry, I need to move something that's blocking my view. All right. I'll just start reading. As the Qi of the south side meditated behind a small table. So here is I took a photograph from the a dictionary of what this small table looks like, and this is the Chinese character. As you can see, the character is really kind of a simplified drawing of the kind of table that we're talking. So the Qi was meditating behind a small table. He looked up at the heavens and sighed. He seemed in a trance, as if he had lost his companion. Here, companion, most scholars believe it refers to the body. So he was in a trance and he seemed to have lost his body. Yanchen Ziyou, presumably his student, who stood in attendance before him, said, "What is this? Can you really make your body like a withered tree? And can you really make your heart like dead ash? Today's meditation is no longer the meditation of the past." So the teacher replied, "Has not Yan," Yan is the student's name, "has not Yan indeed asked a good question? Today I lost myself. Do you understand? You may have heard the wind instrument of human, but you have not yet heard the wind instrument of earth. You may have heard the wind instrument of earth, but have not heard the wind instrument of Tian." So Tian, last time we had a lot of live discussion on how to translate Tian, and I took Kevin's advice just to keep it as in the original Chinese. It's often translated as heaven, but the English word heaven has so many connotations, it tends to become confusing. And Ziyou, the students said, may I dare to ask you the method?" Ziqi, the teacher, said, "The great mass." So the great mass is a common expression in ancient Chinese. It means earth or mother nature. He said, "The great mass exhales qi. It is called wind. If only it, sometimes it's inactive, but once it's activated, myriad orifices howl and rage. Have you not heard it in a prolonged gale?" In the high and rugged mountains, some of the orifices in trees of vast circumference are like noses. Some are like mouths, some are like ears. Some are like vases, some are like cups. Some are like mortars, some are like puddles. Some are like ponds. Some make jetting sounds, some make sounds as an arrow leaving the bow. Some scold, some inhale, some yell, some wail, some laugh, and some sigh. There might be one leading with a yu sound and another follow with a yong sound. With a cool breeze comes a small harmony. With a strong wind, a great harmony. When the raging wind completes, all orifices become hollow. Have you not seen the wavering and the quavering leaf? Ziyou said, I see. Earth's wind instrument consists of the myriad orifices. Human wind instrument refers to bamboo pipes. Dare I ask about the wind instrument of Tian? Ziqi said, the myriad blowings are all different, and the orifices become their own, with each one grasping itself. But who is the one that agitates them? So this is a rhetorical question, right? The answer to that question is the wind instrument of Tian. So I'm going to pause here and invite everyone to jump in. What is your interpretation of this first passage? Madeline.
All right, I'll rush in.
Great.
Well, it all seems quite clear. I disagree, just based on having read this week. I disagree with your interpretation at the end, because I think that if it's saying, dare I ask about the wind instrument of Tian, because Tian is also a created thing in a sense. So I think that the one that agitates the wind instrument of it would be the Tao, would be the Tao going through it.
Oh, yeah. So what's the disagreement? I'm sorry, there's something I said you disagree with. I'm not sure which statement.
Oh, I thought that you meant that it was Tian doing the blowing through itself, I guess. But this is fantastic.
The wind instrument of the Tian, and I think probably we actually agree, but just maybe there's I didn't express myself very well. Right, I agree with what you said. I think what I take from it is Tian is like Tao, is a driving force. And it's not a distinct being that's separate from all the things in the world, right? It's diffusive, it's everywhere, and it's whatever the force that make these sounds. So all these different orifices make different sounds, but really what the laws of physics behind it is all the same.
Also, I really liked your word choices better than the other translations that I read. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad that's clear. Okay, yeah, anyone else?
Okay. I think the last paragraph is, I think this one is a good opening. Basically, the traditional Chinese cosmology talk about the heaven, earth and people, right? So the last one talk about the heaven, the sound of heaven, the qi of heaven, qi of people, qi of earth. So basically, it talk about like open, just like the first chapter, the wandering, the happy wandering, happy journey. Just open the good opening. Just open the big picture, right? The heaven, people, and the earth. These three are all the same. They have the sound, they have the qi, and then I think that's a good starting on this chapter.
Thank you, Jason. So Alex and then Madeline.
Yeah, actually, can you move the slide to the very first paragraph?
Yes.
I think the first very paragraph is the first two paragraphs is probably very important in this whole thing, because it begins from another person's perspective to look at this person who's meditating. Okay, and the most important words in this first paragraph that I want to share with people, because in Chinese philosophy, the word of the by your translation, a withered tree and the dead ash, it became such an important concept, a phenomenon for the rest of the Chinese history. It describes how a person feels or how a person looks, but there's a deeper philosophy behind that. I think this is could be something like even though it looks like it's a withered tree, like when you go to, in New York, we have winter, right? Long periods of winter, and all the trees seems to be withered, and a person who come from a place of tropical country might not, let's talk about, let's say hundreds of years ago, who somebody who's never seen winter. When they see the trees in the wintertime, they might think that the tree is dead. But actually, the tree is preserving its energy and patiently waiting for spring to come. So the withered tree is not really wither. I think it's a very hard phrase to translate, and also the same goes for the dead ash. It was you can, if you think of it in life, what is dead ash in your life? When you are young, you have a lot of passion. When you have a lot of opinions about what's going on in the world. And as you age, when you age, maybe after 20, 30 years later, that passion has condensed and have
Alex,
become.
I'm gonna ask you to hold your thought, because later in this essay, probably it gets into that. So hold your thought there. But thank you very much. Those are excellent points. I do, yeah. Like you said, the tree and the dead ash, I think it actually is a foreshadow of what's to come later in the writing. Anything else you want to talk about, Alex, right now?
I think according to Zhuang Zi, I think what he was trying to say about the orifices, the senses, they might not be real. That's what I think.
Okay. Madeline, you put your hand down. I don't know if you still want to speak right now or wait till later.
That was actually a mistake, but I just want to,
okay.
As long as I'm talking, I just want to thank Alex. I had interpreted ash as meaning the tree. I didn't realize it meant ashes. So seeing that it means like a tree in winter, and then maybe there are embers in the dead ashes. That was really great. Thanks, Alex.
Sorry, I cannot raise my hand. That's why I this one.
Okay,
Yeah,
go ahead,
I'd like
Jason.
to make a 2 point. Okay, can you move to the first chapter? The beginning. So I think that's interesting. I noticed this. The Pin's translation is meditate behind a small table. He looked up the heaven and sighed. He seems in the days and he lost his companion, which is the body. So the Chinese word is "ou," means a couple. So look like, here has a dualism concept here. Okay, they have the soul or spirit and the body. So I think I didn't notice before when I read it, but right now I noticed the words Zhuang Zi use is "ou," which means couple. So it's interesting. It implied the dualism concept here. Second, just like Alex talked about the withered tree and the dead ashes. So common thing is the withered tree will grow leaf again. And the dead ashes, when you see dead ashes, when you blow it, sometimes the fire will come back. So it's kind of like interest concept, metaphor here. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Tai.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about acoustics real quick. I just thought it was really interesting insofar as the metaphor with regard to the sound wind instruments make, particularly going through different orifices. If you've watched the latest edition of Cosmos, which I prefer Sagan's version, but Neil deGrasse Tyson is fine too, he actually talks about the acoustics of an organ and how basically the length as well as the depth of the tube of the organ, produces a certain kind of sound wave. I think ultimately, though, what it's saying, though, is as much as we humans try to imitate nature, we really can't, and tagging on to Jason's point about cosmology, we really can't sort of manufacture it in its totality. And recently, for instance, I was watching YouTube and, just going through my, I'm into music, whatever. And I started listening to 8D acoustics, which basically require you to have headphones on. And it was fascinating to me how that worked. And then finally, I will say that I'm a big Jeopardy fan, and I just saw a contestant who actually studies coral reefs as they pertain to acoustics and how that may affect the organism of the coral reef, the acoustics that occurs underneath the water. And so I appreciate the metaphor, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Tai.
All right, I'm going to try to mute myself.
Alex, you want to add something?
Yes, I think what Tai mentioned before about the acoustics and the chorus, and it's what Zhuang Zi exactly want people to understand, that he is, even though it seems his writing seems of his story seems to be metaphorical and asking a lot of questions, but he is very scientific. He knows that because of the wind that makes these orifices, he's a very scientific person, even and he demonstrated with these stories. So he wants to inspire people to ask questions, investigate nature and humans' relationship with nature. But the second thing I really want to mention is, can you go back to the first slide again? I just want to share this with everyone, because this is also another very important concept in Chinese history and philosophy, which is that line, "Today I lost myself." Think about it. Today I lost myself. Maybe you lost yourself, a part of yourself that was 10 years ago. Maybe you lost your, it could be interpreted in many different ways. But this also is a pretty big topic. What does it mean when you say, "Today I lost myself"? It could mean that you lost your inspiration, your passion for something, and it's a very new idea. Confucius would never talk about "today I lost myself," So yeah, I just want to share that with everyone.
Thank you, Alex. Excellent point. Sarah.
Yeah.
Sarah, you're
Embrace.
actually, we can't hear you. You're breaking up a lot. Can you?
Oh, can you now? I wasn't talking close to the phone.
But yeah, that's better. That's better.
With myself, I from myself to everything else in existence, such as being here. But that
Sarah, sorry, you're you're blanking out a lot. So when you get better
yeah,
signal,
when there's another human around, it always interferes. I apologize. I will follow up on that point if I can get better service.
Actually, now you sound good. So maybe go ahead. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So again, the way I saw that one line, and I do believe powerful. So I liked how she just brought that up. But the way I saw it was that today I lost myself, but I gained everything else. Like for me, it's going into nature. It's like I lost myself, but I was with everything else. That's how I see it too. But I think many interpretations, like she said, it's a very powerful statement to put in here.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, that's a great point. It seems like he's saying that this meditation today, he achieved some higher state of enlightenment. I do agree with that. But I think just like the wind, all the sounds are equally valid. Yeah. So all the interpretations we have are equally valid. Okay, let's go on to the next section. Great knowledge is vast. Small knowledge is distinct. Big speech is scorching. Small speech is verbose. When people sleep, their spirits are intertwined. When they wake, their forms open. When people engage, they fight each other with their hearts all day. Some are laid back, some conceal, and some secretive. Small fear is anxious. Great fear is plain. They dart out as a crossbow arrow, speaking of when people judge right and wrong. Holding back as if under oath, I'm speaking of people defending their winnings. The killing is like autumn and winter. I'm speaking of how life diminishes by the day. Humans drown in what they do and cannot go back. Closed up like a sealed letter. I'm speaking of aging into becoming a stale ditch. For a heart near death, nothing can rejuvenate it. Joy, anger, sorrow, and pleasure, deliberation, regret, change, fear, elegance, grace, elation, phoniness, music coming out of empty holes, moisture becoming mushrooms, day and night, alternating before our eyes, and no one knows where they sprout from. Stop. So, what do you think of this? Okay, I don't see hands up. Maybe the meaning is fairly obvious. He's describing, I say, the mundane lives that most of us live, right? We are negotiating life, learning the techniques of life, how to win in life, how to compete, how to keep secrets, how to engage. And in the process, we're really in the process of dying. We're in the process of diminishing our true selves. And eventually we age into a state like a stale ditch. And so At least that's my general interpretation. Karen.
Reading it just as coming after what went before, though I don't know if it's meant to be read that way, it seems like after this discussion of the sounds of nature and of the tian that the person has been meditating and hearing or reflecting upon, and then this seems like there's so much chaos and noise of human life. So it's like this is what's drowning out what we should maybe be listening to, because just thinking of big speeches scorching, small speeches verbose, both of those are noisy, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it seems like there's a lot of activity here.
Yeah.
It's going nowhere but towards death, and so it's sort of like, you know, there was all the noise of the previous one, and now there's a bunch of noise here. So I hadn't really until now noticed that, you know, it's more talk about noise in a way, right?
Thank you. Thank you. Sarah.
Yeah, as long as you guys can hear me, quick question. What was the main thinker's take on everlasting existence slash do they believe that we just age and die, or do they believe that we kind of continue with our souls and it's everlasting in that sense? I think it's an important I think thing I need to know about this, and I just haven't been joining your classes enough, so I don't know if you guys have already gone over that topic, but what's kind of the general take on that in this kind of area and timing?
Yeah, excellent question. And instead of me answering, I think there's an answer later on in a few slides. How about that? And I'll see if at the end, if you don't think you got the answer, then ask me again, and I'll try to elaborate.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sounds great. Alex. Alex, are you muted? You're muted.
So yeah, I think yeah, maybe later we're probably going to get to that point, but I want to point out, to share this with everyone, that this essay, this whole essay, this chapter has a lot of comparison. This is how Zhuang Zi writes when he wrote. He loves to compare a lot of things like big and small, knowledge, speech, what kind of speech, you know. So I just want people to keep that in mind, that, you know, it makes you think about many opposite things and what is right, what is wrong. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, great. Let's move on. Once obtained, will it give life again? Without these things, there is no me, and without me, there's nothing to get. This is indeed close to the matter, but we don't know what governs it. If there is a true ruler, I am singularly not able to see it. The operability is already affirmed, but I cannot see the form. The context exists, but no form. The 100 bones, 9 orifices, 6 organs, all exist. With which should I be intimate? Do all of them please you? Is there a coveted one? Are they servants and maids? If they are servants and maids, then they are not sufficient to govern each other. Do they take turns as ruler and subject? Does a true ruler exist? If seeking, obtaining the true essence or not does not add or diminish the reality of truth. Once a body is formed, we do not escape waiting for it to finish depleting. Going against and along with things, the progression toward depletion is as a chariot in motion and cannot be stopped. Isn't this tragic? Whole lives toil without seeing success, tired from exhausting toiling, but not knowing where to return. Is it not pitiful? People say this is not dead, but what is the benefit? The body evolves and the heart follows. Is this not a great pity? So, Any comments, thoughts to share?
Madeline had hands up.
Madeline and then Tai.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just thought I would get things going. I loved the listing of the parts of the body, the bones, like it's very specific using the numbers. That was lovely. And also as servants and maids. So what he's really saying is this a like a self-sustaining network system that we're in? Or is there something that is outside of it directing it? Not just the body, but the entire universe. And he sort of encapsulated the whole question in this one little paragraph of metaphors.
Yeah, personally, I find this paragraph is one of the most thought-provoking ones for me. He doesn't give us the answer, right? But when you think of your own body, what is the master? You know, is it our brain? Is it our heart? Obviously, not any one of them. Is it the collective? Well, that doesn't quite seem like it either. Is it that there's something else called the soul? I don't know.
Yeah, and also he says, whether you, basically the last sentence of that paragraph, I interpret as saying, it doesn't matter how you understand it.
Yeah.
It's going to be what it is.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Tai.
I just have a informational question. Like, I counted 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 mouth, 2 digestive orifices. That just adds up to 7. And so, unless we're going with where soul meets body, I don't, soul and heart, I don't know. But if anyone knows the answer, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, I thought about that because in Chinese only we say 7 orifices, because you know. But then I realized we're only thinking about the face. You're not thinking about what the person was drawing on our screen before. That's another orifice.
You know what?
Behind,
you know what?
on the
Madeline
dark
got it
side,
right.
there's
It's
yet
totally
another
the
one.
nostrils. The
Yeah.
nostrils. Thank you, Madeline.
Yeah. 2 nostrils, 2 ears. So there's 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then plus 2 more. There's 9. And then why is it 6 organs? Because in Chinese, we never really say 5 organs, but it's actually, there are 2 kidneys. So it's 6. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I like to look at the last sentence, right? Compared to the beginning, you talk about the couple. So I keep reading this one as a dualism idea. So he talk about the heart, the shape, the body evolve and the heart follow. So basics talking about the couple, the dualism, the heart and the body. So here he complained about it's a pity your heart follow your body. So in another way, if you can have your heart lead your body, that would be the different situation. So that's what I read in this paragraph.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. Great point. Also, you know, another parallel is the first paragraph, right, talks about all the different sounds, and then it ends with a question. What agitates, what drives all these sounds to be made? And here also, he writes about these different parts of the body and ends with a question. What is the true ruler of all these different parts of your body? And okay, let's keep going. Is human life as blind as such? Wait, sorry, I'm making sure I didn't skip anything. Okay. Is human life as blind as such Am I alone blind? Well, there are ones who are not blind. If we follow our made-up mind as our teacher, who will alone be without a teacher? How do you know if someone who replaces what is in your heart with his own has the truth? A fool might be able to do that. With a mind yet to be made up and to have judgment of right and wrong is like departing for the state of rear today and arriving yesterday. This is to regard non-existence as existence. Even if sage Yu were here, he cannot know. What am I supposed to do? So any thoughts on this?
I'll make a quick comment. I can't raise my hand. So, I mean, I look at this.
Jump in.
So this has to deal with just uncertainty. Like we just don't know what the right thing to do is in a particular situation. That's the way I kind of just short comment.
Yes. Thank you. Kevin?
Yes, thank you. I want to make a comment about 其随其成心而失之. We basically translated with the mind we made up, we judge everything we own. That's so basically what our mind, our knowledge, we learning more, we have more cognitive bias. So many. If we search wiki, it's then another with a cognitive bias, then you going to either fall into the trap of false dichotomy. Yes or no, you're going to judge people, judge the ideology, judge a person, judge behavior, judge everything you can sense. But one thing, you don't judge yourself. Thank you. I'm going to pause here.
Thank you, Kevin. And Elena. Elena, you muted. Okay.
Yes, yes, I unmuted myself. And thank you. I have one comment and one question. My question is, what do you think, who would be a sage you who's been referred here? It's one thing. And my comment is, here's like, it's inquiry into, am I the only one who has made up mind? And are there others who say, quote unquote, who did awake and do not have, say, pre-programmed mind that rules them? That's how I interpret it again. It's just like inquiry. The only one like that, but others are like that too. And if they are not like that, then what?
Right.
So it's kind of
thank you. To answer your question, the sage Yu was the founder of the Xia dynasty, which was 2 dynasties before Zhuang Zi's time. He was known as, at the time there were horrible floods by the Yellow River. He led people and he came up with a strategy of digging channels to redirect the flow into the ocean and relieve the flood that way. He stopped the floods after working tirelessly for many years. So he became very celebrated as a cultural hero, a savior, if you will. Okay, SK.
Hey, this kind of reminds me of Kathopanishad, where we talked about how mind takes over the horses and the chariot goes nuts. The whole chariot goes nuts. And also the orifices that you talked about earlier, There is a similar thing in Mandukya Upanishad, which we kind of touched upon very briefly. We haven't really gone into it. But yeah, here the mind kind of reminded me of that, where the mind has taken over the chariot and the senses are just driving you all over the place. Thanks.
Thank you, SK. You actually, so, made me think of the whole initiation of Zen Buddhism in China. Certainly Zhuang Zi has had a lot of influence. And you can see why, it's almost inevitable that once Buddhism came into China, there's these kind of commonalities. Reading one makes you kind of think of the other, and it's kind of a natural thing that there's something like Zen Buddhism will be born out of this.
Yeah, but I think ultimately, I think there is one, there's one truth, right? I mean, we always say that. And there are different paths, if you look at Judaism or Christianity, or, most of the time the really reached soul, when you hear them, there is a lot of similarity that you can draw between them, because that ultimate goal that they have reached is kind of similar. Anyways, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any other hands, so I will proceed. Now, language is not wind. Language has something to say, but what it says is not settled. Is there really something to be said? Or was there never anything to be said? We take words to be different from birds chirping, but is there really a distinction, or is there no distinction? Wherever Tao is obscured, truth and falsehood arise. Wherever language is obscured, judgmentalism of right and wrong arise. No matter where Tao goes, it exists. No matter where language exists, it is suitable. Tao is obscured by small accomplishment, and language is obscured by prominence and celebrity. Therefore, Confucianists and Mohists have their rights and wrongs, writing what they hold as wrong and criticizing what the opposition holds as right. If one wants to right the wrong and wrong the right, then there is nothing like using Ming. So Ming is a jargon that he created to try to represent this concept, some kind of philosophy he's trying to tell us in this paragraph and the next couple of paragraphs. And the word Ming itself means brilliance in Chinese. So yeah, please don't be shy to raise your hand. But Madeline.
Okay, I'm not. I was just wondering, so in the penultimate sentence, therefore Confucianists and Mohists, so he's a later Taoist, he's coming in after the Confucianists and Mohists. He is agreeing with rectification of names, but he is saying that it has to come from that place in the center rather than from ritual and everything and custom.
Are you asking a question, or is that your interpretation?
It's my interpretation. I'm wondering if it's correct. So it's also a question.
Yeah, you raised a really good point and some insight that I hadn't thought of before, because I think you're right. Because later, right, he talks about the pivot of Dao and being the center and in the center of the circle of argument. So I agree with you. And that's, when I first read this paragraph myself, I thought it was a simple critique of this useless argument between different perspectives and different schools of thought. But yeah, thank you for, I think your insight into this gave me a better level of understanding. Alex.
Yeah, I think I think this paragraph makes me think about a lot of opposing arguments in the world right now, and that we should always listen to what everyone have to say, and not just think of everything in terms of right and wrong. That's the equality of things. I mean,
yeah. Really, this previous paragraph and this, right? He's trying to really induce us to question ourselves. Is there really right or wrong? Is there even such a thing as opinion or message? Like, does language really contain anything meaningful? Right? He really wants to fundamentally, completely ask us to question everything. Karen.
Yeah, I'm kind of caught by the idea that language creates truth and falsehood as well as right and wrong. So it seems to me, if you think about language as sort of like the chirping of the birds, that it creates these problems for itself, right? So, because you start to put things into words, and the words are sort of limiting. When you describe the world in terms of one, you obviously don't capture everything. So someone else will come and describe the world in terms of its opposite. And the truth is somewhere in between, if there is truth. And so you're kind of setting up this back and forth. But in the end, it may just be that you're creating this whirlwind in a teacup of your own, creation, because you come up with these concepts that then play off each other. And in the meantime, there's just existence in the background, just going along doing its own thing. So yeah, so one side is just criticizing the other, and they're going back and forth like birds chirping at each other. But the opposition and its continuous back and forth is created by the conceptual framework that they've created in order to get the conversation started.
Yeah. Thank you, Karen. So I see someone in the chat box asking what is Dao. Yes. So Dao is a character in Chinese that means the way or the path, and is really it's a concept that's hard to explain. It's kind of like how the cosmos works, something like that. So it's an abstract concept, the way. Yeah. Kevin.
Yeah, thank you, Ping. I got 2 points. One is about the Dao. If you base it Dao De Jing first, Dao Ke Dao, Fei Cao Dao. It's generally old days, they don't have punctuation. For today, if I can interpret, I'm gonna Dao can be spoke. Dao cannot be spoke. All eternal Dao. That's basically for apply to our own life. What do we know? What we don't know, all apply to Dao. It's not, see, what I know is Dao. My way is highway, another way is not. So I can pause there. Another one about here is language. Language itself, if treat language as a tool or system, it always have so many limitations. It's linear, it's judgmental. And if we want a concept apply to another language system, maybe different. For example, Tian apply to a Western language, it's hard to interpret. And for example, we apply heaven to the Chinese, we easily Shangdi is different to what we, if it's interesting thing, when we do translation, one side, it seems to make sense. If it's translated back, totally different. Basically, it's really like a deal. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex.
yeah, I think Joe, did you raise your hand?
Oh, Joe, yes.
Yeah,
he can't raise his hand, so yes, please.
I did, but that's okay. What
Okay.
I was going to say, yeah, it's no problem. I did. Thank you, though, Alex.
So
Yeah,
Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, I wanna give an example of Dao. Okay, and it could be a little bit different from what previously discussed. Basically, Tao is, for example, a cook, where you see in a night market in Asia, they do everything very quickly. They have been doing the same thing for maybe 10 years. The ominous, motions of how they make the noodle, and put the different ingredients in, that is in a way a kind of meditation. And that actually refers to the very first paragraph where the meditator is trying to meditate. And basically, when somebody has been doing the same thing and have so evolved themselves, have learned so much, have basically morphed themselves into what they're doing without thinking, and everything becomes, they don't even have to think about it, and they already know what to do. Just like, as many of you people probably know, a Japanese sushi master, they have to practice for 10, 15, 20 years to become a true sushi master, every day doing the same thing. And that is a form of meditation. And when they finally achieve the truth, when they finally don't even have to think about it, they already know the secrets and essence and morph it, all that experience. Actually, they call this chapter is also talking about a lot about experiences in life. So this person who's been doing something for a long time, is in the end he will achieve Tao, which is he doesn't even have to think about it, and that is already, he already know exactly what to do. So that, I just want to give that example.
Great, thank you, Alex. So let's move on. There are no things that are not that. There are no things that are not this. From the perspective of that, we do not see. When we know for ourselves, then we know it. That originated from this, and this also came out of that. That is the saying of Just Born. So Just Born, he's referring to another philosopher's famous theory. And now he explains, summarizes what that is. Birth is the beginning of death, and death is the beginning of birth. So Sarah, when I said there's an answer later, this is the section that I was thinking about. So birth is the beginning of death.
It's like hits the nail on the head perfectly. Thank you.
Great. And death is the beginning of birth. Affirmation is the origin of rejection, and rejection is the origin of affirmation. Because there is right, wrong exists. Because there is wrong, right exists. Therefore, the sage does not follow, but reflect on Tian, also because of this. This is also that, and that is also this. That has a right and wrong, and this has a right and wrong. Is there really a that and a this? Or is there actually no that or this? That and this never obtaining their counterpart is called the Pivot Center of Dao. So just to also add a little bit, Sarah, basically the Taoist view, especially Zhuang Zi's view, is that life and death, it's just all a part of the cycle of nature. And what we think of life, the beginning of life is really also the beginning of the march toward death. And then what we think of the beginning of death is actually the birth of the next life. Just like a dead leaf that falls from the tree, go into the soil and become nutrient to grow more tree.
Right. Yes, that does very much answer what I kind of wanted to know. Thank you.
Okay, everyone. What do you think? or I can move on. Yeah, let's keep going. I have 2 more slides and we have 11 minutes left. So I want to definitely get to the story of the monkeys, which is my favorite, probably just because I like monkeys. And then we'll wrap up today. The pivot begins by acquiring the center of the ring to respond to the endless. Right is an endless, and wrong is also endless. This is why I say nothing works as well as using Ming. Using a finger to show a finger is not a finger. So again, this coming up the finger and the horse is he's referring to the school of names, philosophers' endless debate about whether a finger is a finger or if a white horse is a horse, stuff like that. So it's a cross-reference. And if you don't understand this part, I would say don't worry about it. So using a finger to show a finger is not being a finger is not as good as using a non-finger to show a finger is not a finger. Using a horse to show a horse not to be a horse is not as good as using a non-horse to show that a horse is not a horse. Tian and earth are but one finger. All things are but one horse. Affirm the affirmable, reject the objectionable. A path is made by walking. Things become so by being called so. What is so? Whatever is so is so. What is not so? Whatever is not so is not so. My meager understanding, basically the main point is, all this arguing between different philosophers and whatnot, it's just endless. And, things are just the way they are, and it is what it is. And things definitely have their way of being so. Things definitely have their fit. There's nothing that is not so, nothing that is unfit. For instance, a stalk of grass and a pillar, a leper, and Shishi. Shishi was the most famous beautiful woman of that time. It's an epitome of beauty in Chinese history. So a leper and Shishi are all the mysterious and bizarre beings. Dao arrives at one. So basically to Dao, it's all the same. They're just things. That which is partial is completed. That which is completed degenerates. For all things, there is no completion or destruction. They return to one. Only the wise understands the return to one. Therefore, the wise does not use judgment, but resides in utility. Utility is using. Using is to unblock. Unblocking is to obtain. This brings us closer to the truth. Based on this, when one stops without knowing how so is called Tao. So this reminds me of 2 things. One is what Alex just said. She's describing someone become so skillful without even knowing how to do it. You forget how to do it because you no longer think about it. You just do it. You just know how to, your body just moves. And another thing is this thing about utility is a famous quote from Deng Xiaoping. When he was a leader, the leader of China, there was a great debate on the path forward, whether it's going to be communism or capitalism. He famously settled the fierce debate by saying, we don't care if it's a black cat or a white cat. A cat that catches mice is a good cat. So, Karen.
That's a great quote. Is there a criticism here of the whole project of rectifying names? Because it seems to me that he's not being a sort of deep skeptic or relativist in that he thinks that there is a way reality is, right? But a stalk of grass could be like a pillar to an ant, or someone who's very beautiful, or someone who's a leper might be very beautiful to some. So it's like our names can't fit the complexity of reality because they're always going to come from one. They're always going to come from the one doing the naming, right? So I'm wondering if there's sort of just a rejection here of that project, of the idea that you could rectify the names, right? Because names are tools. And so I'm wondering if here is it Cheng Zi?
I tend to
Chenza?
agree with.
Yeah,
I tend to my own I agree with you. And it's about names is this endless circle, right? And why does it keep circling? Because it's insufficient. Whereas Tao is not inside the circle at all. The circle is a one-dimensional being. The Tao is really outside of that dimension, and it's in the middle somewhere.
Right. Or you could imagine like a group of kids at an elementary school trying to figure out who the real grandma is, because everybody calls a different person grandma, and they just don't understand how that word grandma works. Right. So yeah, so it's like he's saying, you have these names like right, wrong, beautiful, and they're kind of like grandma, right? They're kind of in relation to you. So if your intellectual quest is trying to find the one truly only grandma, you kind of miss how language works when it comes to grandmas, right? Grandma for you is different from grandma for Susie next to you. And so I'm wondering if he sort of almost becomes the first pragmatist here of sort of saying, when it comes to language and truth, the best we can do is what works, because we're always going to be like, we want to use grandma so that we get to the woman who gives us cookies and takes us home after school or whatever, like we want to be able to use grandma in that spirit, not thinking we're on this quest for the true grandma of all humans everywhere, right?
Yeah, thank you. Very, very interesting points. Alex.
Yeah, see, I just want to give another short example of the Tao. It's like the first line that you're talking about. Things definitely have their way of being so. So basically, it's just like a tree. You already know how to grow to be a tree, a flower, or an animal, a leopard, or the epitome of beauty. She's just going to be the way she's going to be, and everything else, in nature already know how to. Nobody need to teach them how to do these things. So in the end, that is all Tao. Yeah, just want to add that.
Yeah, thank you. Elena.
Okay. So just going there again, what do you think is something that I picked up, and let me phrase a question. So there is once there is two sides with a counterpart, and they are identified, they disintegrate, and they don't return to Tao. Whereas there is some particular elements that are not complete, they return to Tao. And this is false things for which there is no completion and destruction, they return to Tao. And in the previous chapter, we had for all these things that don't have counterpart, they also call the Private Center of Dao. So what is that? What do you think is happening here? Thank you.
Yeah, I think everything is inside Tao. So he's trying to say, yeah, we see the world often as dichotomies, right? Life and death are opposite things. But if you understand Tao, or from the Tao's perspective, they're actually just the same thing, is that things transform. They're not actually opposing. Is life transform into death, death transform into life, and so on and so forth, and never ending. So that's why that's what he's trying to say, is that Tao. So we humans tend to see things as these opposing things, dichotomies, and things. There's a right or there's a wrong. But it's actually not about any of that. There's only a right you will only think that something is right because you think something else is wrong. So without wrong, there's no right. And without right, there's no wrong. So everything is interdependent and everything is transformative and evolutionary. And so that is the one that that Tao understands. Madeline.
I'm looking at the last few sentences. For all things, there is no completion or destruction. Return to one. Okay, here we are. Therefore, the wise does not use judgment, but resides in utility. I'm wondering if the utility and using refer to everyday life. Like, I know a couple of times in the Tao Te Ching meetup, Aman has said that it's the Tao Te Ching is kind of a manual for how to go about life. And so I'm wondering if it's that kind of utility of daily life, or if it's the practices like, say, Tai Chi or Qigong or something, that are the things that are going to be useful to you in becoming more enlightened.
It's probably both, but I think it certainly does include the everyday utility, because I think of in Dao De Jing of Lao Tzu, there's a chapter that says, a house is hollow inside, and that's what makes it useful. A water vessel is hollow inside, and that's what makes that useful. And you have 30 spokes to form a wheel, and it's hollow in the middle, and that's what makes it useful. And then it concludes by saying the existence of things is necessary, but what makes it useful is the hollowness. So knowing that Zhuang Zi is a great admirer of Lao Tzu, I would think those, they use the same words, and so I kind of use Lao Tzu to interpret Zhuang Zi here. Alex, actually, if you can wait, we have just one more slide. So, and we're a couple minutes past time, so I'm gonna just read the next slide, and then we'll go into discussion. Okay, thank you. To tire one's mind in the effort to understand one, yet not knowing that they are already the same, this is called 3 in the morning. What is the meaning of 3 in the morning? So he's referring to an anecdote. When the monkey keeper was handing out chestnuts, he said, 3 in the morning and 4 in the evening. All the monkeys were angry. He then said, well then, I'll give you 4 in the morning and 3 in the evening. All the monkeys were pretty pleased. The name and substance did not wane, yet the happiness and anger came into effect. It is because of this. Thus, the sage harmonizes right and wrong and rests on the scale of Tian. This is called dual path. Okay, so now we are halfway through this chapter, and this is where we stop today. And hopefully in the month, we will pick this up and finish the chapter. Thank you, and yeah, please, we're open for discussion.
Alex.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure your translation of 3 in the morning is correct. How did you arrive at translating 3? Because 朝三暮四 is not just I'm not sure if it's just referring to the time of the day. I think it's referring to quantity.
Oh yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, sorry, I didn't think, it didn't occur to me that's ambiguous. It's 3 pieces in the morning. Yeah, I should have said, yeah, thank you. I should say 3 pieces in the morning. Yeah.
3 pieces in the morning. Yeah. Okay.
Or 3 chestnuts. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
this
yeah.
is this. You know, I just want to share with people in this.
So I thought it would be clear because it refers to the story, and the story is about 3 chestnuts in the morning.
Yeah, it's about somebody or a group of people. You know, they're having 3, but they're still thinking about 4. Like they're never satisfied. But then if you reversed it from 4 and then to 3, then they all of a sudden feel like they're getting more. You know, even though it's the same thing every single day. So it's referring to people, as you know, a lot of people nowadays were arguing for how to go about different things, how to manage different things. But actually, maybe they're all the same. It's just how you administer it. So this is referring to people who are, I guess, in a way, a little bit greedy. So this is a very famous story in Chinese history, and this Zhao San Mu Si is used a lot even today. Like you already have 3, but you still want to have more. You already have a good amount, and yet you're not satisfied, and you still want more. But actually, in the end, it could just be the same thing.
Yeah, this is a common 4-character idiom that's very well used in modern day language. And it also refers to when you describe someone who's fickle. And like you said, Alex, that fickleness that's driven, oftentimes by greed or wanting more. But someone who you can't count on because this person keeps changing his mind. We describe it as morning 3 and evening 4.
Yeah, I think, it's today when we say Zhao San Mu Si, I don't think most of people think about the monkey eats 3 and in the morning and 4 in the afternoon. I think most of people think about like an indecisive person or fickle, situation. Yeah, that's the story is from here, but after 2,000 years, people change the meaning of this. One thing I'd like to talk about is up to this point, I just want to bring to a little bit high level point of view, right? You can see at the beginning, Zhuang Zi talk about the very big picture, the heaven, the sound of heaven, the earth, and the people. And they start to move the knowledge, right? The great knowledge and the small knowledge. They move to the mind and the body, or so-called body and the heart, and they talk about the right the wrong thing, wrong the right thing, and what's the judgment, and talk about the Moism and the Confucius, the argument that they debate and they criticize each other, and we all use different language. And what's the difference between our language and the birth song? They keep asking this kind of question. They start to talk about the birth and the death. Are they the same? The birth is the moving forward to the death, and the death is the beginning of the birth. So then go back to talk about the heaven and the earth. It's just like a horse. What's the difference? When you point about everything, you use your finger to point out everything. It's just a finger. So I think they try to this on like everything is the same. What's the difference? And I think that's the concept is quite simple, but that's the way Zhuang Zi try to bring the whole essay, about this one. And then what next? The second half will be more things like a butterfly, So that's leading to the end. So I see this one. The language is quite difficult. Even today, I read many times. I still find a lot of words are very difficult. So I also like to ask Pin the question: how do you read the last 2 words, the dual path, 两行? Okay, I still don't get it. Okay, I don't know. You have a better explanation.
I don't get it. You know, the 以明 and 两行. I just assume that this is a new concept that Zhuang Zi was trying to introduce, or his original concept. So he's giving it his own terminology. And he said, no, that's why he says, this is called 两行. He's basically in coining his own terminology to represent this concept. Kevin?
Yeah, I like the Zhou San Mu Si. Totally 7 pieces in a day. So if I give you 4 in the morning, 3 or nothing later on, seems you are happy. That's kind of steadily apply our practicing ourselves sometimes in society. We like to get it right now. Anything else? Later on, I use my credit card, or I don't care that. So, for politicians, no, I need my short benefit. I got election next couple of months, so how can I get a vote? That's my first priority. I don't care for 3 pieces or 4 pieces. I give you 5 pieces. So when I'm in charge of the power, then talk about it later. So then this is another example. I think about the pandemic and European conflict now happened. So for pandemic, so who is ourselves? If everyone ideally we do the same action, 1 month we done with this. We can control ideally. However, no, if that's my life, my body, no vaccine. I don't even carry the mask. So that's what's happened in Italy. And another one in the European, who is right, who is wrong. Eventually, everybody suffers. That's like, okay, initially you got like a year ago, you got 5 or 7 pieces. Later on, okay, I got 2. Now I want 5 pieces. I want 7 pieces. Eventually, everyone, we lost some pieces. At least lower the herd, our gas price, our food, supply chain. Hard herd, it's right, refugees. Then how about refugee affect the local life? No one happy with those people. The refugees' life not happy like you stay your own home. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Yeah, that's why. Well, first of all, I just love the image of the monkeys. But when you think about it, as I think you're pointing out too, that you might say, oh, these dumb monkeys, they can't even tell the difference between 3 in the morning and 4 at night, or 4 in the morning and 3 at night. But when you think about it, are we really much smarter? It's kind of like, let's say, one's employer say, oh, I'm gonna cut your pay, but you can work less. The workers might get angry, and then say, okay, fine. I'll give you a promotion then, and then you wind up working a lot more. So is that different from this story? Well, like you said, the loan. You buy something, the bank says, oh, I lend you money. Well, that's so great. But with the interest at the end of the term, right, you're actually paying a lot more at the end. But it's your choice. Alex.
Yeah, I'm trying to tie in Jason's point out the sage harmonized right and wrong. What do you think that referring to the story? Because even though they want 4 pieces in the morning, 3 pieces in the afternoon, but is there right or wrong in the story? It just seems like the monkey is just trying to behave the way they are, and where's the right and wrong? Where do you think is the right and wrong in the story? And when a sage harmonizes right and wrong, rests on the scale of Tian, is also pretty vague, you know. I guess the sage, if a good king could, you know, could harmonize, I wouldn't say right or wrong, I would say harmonize everyone's opinions, then it would achieve some sort of harmony. But I don't see the right. Do you think there's a right and wrong in this story, or?
I think that's the point. There is no right or wrong. So the sage doesn't see it as right or wrong. It's harmonized. That it's right or wrong just coexist. They're both right. Yeah. And that's my interpretation. Yeah. But I do agree. This last part is very hard to understand. Yeah.
Well, at least the monkey thinks that it was wrong to get through these. Only through pieces.
Well, no. I think what Zhuang Zi is saying is that a lot of things in life, there's actually no real difference, but we have emotional reactions as though there's a right or wrong, but there really isn't.
Right.
Madeline.
All right, this may be a little off course here. I'm looking at the sentence that says the name and substance did not wane, yet the happiness